Warner Brothers Movie World is one of Australia's most popular theme parks, located on the Gold Coast about 13 miles outside of Surfers Paradise. They house 15 rides, all themed to different Warner Brothers properties, such as DC and Looney Tunes. Visitors can see shows, interact with different characters, check out some actual movie props, or hop on one of their signature roller coasters. Now, as of when this video is being made, the park is home to 5 roller coasters. However, that is soon to change. Warner Brothers Movie World is currently in a transition period. They're about to open up a new roller coaster called The Flash. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Coming up is also their largest single expansion to date with The Wizard of Oz. That's going to be really cool. So when all this is said and done, they're going to be home to 9 individual roller coasters, which is crazy. When I visited Warner Brothers Movie World, I got to ride 3. I had to deal with a couple closures due to extended maintenance, but I still had a fantastic time. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through the entire park experience, tell you what you need to know, go through all the different rides, and hopefully give some good tips along the way. So first off, there are 4 what I would call Warner Brothers parks around the world. So you have Park Warner in Madrid, Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi, this one in Australia, and then what is now known as Movie Park Germany. That park's an interesting one because it's no longer technically Warner Brothers, but it still has a lot of similarities. In fact, that's the park I would most similarly compare this experience to. Even the layout isn't that different. So in that regards, it was actually kind of weird walking around this place. I was kind of getting deja vu. This park was so highly anticipated for me. It was easily the property I was most looking forward to visiting in Australia. The roller coaster DC Rivals was my most anticipated ride of the trip. There's already a full separate review of that attraction on the channel. Please go check it out if you want to hear about that ride specifically. I'm not really going to go into it in this video, but I will say when you're driving up to Warner Brothers Movie World, the first thing you see is DC Rivals, and that is a heck of a first impression. The ride runs right up alongside the road. You pass under that Movie World sign, Hollywood on the Gold Coast, and you just see this big pink roller coaster in front of you. It's so cool. The park is just one attraction in this large complex, all of which you can just walk between. There's a Top Golf, there's an Australian Outback dinner show, Wet n Wild is right next door, and then of course, an actual working movie studio. So some backstory, Warner Brothers Movie World is owned by Village Roadshow, who also operate the studios next door. There's literally 9 sound stages, all used for filmmaking next to this theme park. They've shot a ton of movies there that you're probably very familiar with. Interestingly enough, Warner Brothers Movie World used to do a studio tour through the production areas in a very similar style to what Universal Hollywood still does. For whatever reason, they no longer do it, which is too bad because to me, that'd be like the icing on the cake for what this movie theme park really needs. Hopefully they bring it back one day. But it's in a great location, super convenient if you're doing more than one attraction, which even though Warner Brothers Movie World is open almost every day of the year, which is just crazy, they do close at 5 o'clock most days, which sucks, but I know a lot of other places around here do that. So it's not that uncommon. When I went, I did one day at Warner Brothers Movie World. And even though I was there from open to close, I wish I had more time. And that's with some of the attractions not being operational. Now, part of that is because there's a lot more to see and do here than you probably realize, but it's also because you're likely going to be looking at some higher crowds here, at least compared to some of the other parks like Dream World or SeaWorld. This was easily the busiest of the 3 when I went. Plan on a full day and consider investing in some skip the line passes. You're going to want them, especially if things are on one train. You get that a lot on Superman and DC Rivals. Green Lantern will run more than one, but that's because you're looking at small 8-person vehicles. And Scooby-Doo's in a similar way, but that's not reopening until 2025, so just be warned, if you want those 2 train operations, you gotta go during their summer period, which is like December and January, but then you're also dealing with summer crowds, so it's a give and take. Now, when you walk into Warner Brothers Movie World, you have this great entrance sign, looks almost identical to Movie Park Germany's. Again, they're like sister parks, but interestingly enough, the layout of Movie World was actually modeled after Universal Hollywood or Disney's Hollywood Studios. This is like a shrunken down version of it. Originally, when they opened, the park's capacity was only about 13,000 guests, which sounds like a lot of people, but that's like nowhere near as much as you get with some larger parks, especially we're used to in the United States, like Kings Island or Dollywood. I'm sure the park's capacity has certainly increased since they opened, but this is still a relatively small park. It'll feel bigger once the Wizard of Oz area opens. Right now, it's not even a complete circle, but in terms of actual land, you're not going to have to do anywhere near as much walking as you will at SeaWorld or Dream World. You have the Looney Tunes fountain directly ahead. Behind it is Superman Escape. I really liked the theming that they integrated with this ride. I've heard from some people that they think that this is the best coaster in the park. It looks short but punchy. I look forward to experiencing it one day, as well as the Flash coaster that's being built directly in the center of that helix. We got to see some of the construction for it before it was announced, which was really cool. So from here, you're at a crossroads. You can go left to DC Rivals Rivals, Green Lantern, and Justice League. That dead ends once you get to DC Rivals. It's an area of the park you're definitely going to want to spend some time in just because of how many big rides are there, but there's much more of the park to the right if you continue down Main Street. Now, I actually quite enjoyed this Main Street area. It's covered very much in the style of like Universal Japan or Tokyo Disneyland. You have a lot of like old Hollywood style buildings. There's a movie theater where they're playing a 4D show. And I think the main thing that'll impress you about this section is the live actors. There are so many characters represented in this park. Just in walking around this one street, we saw Batman and Robin, the Joker, Harley Quinn, a bunch of classic Hollywood performers who rolled up on a trolley and were singing and dancing. It was like very Universal or Disney-esque. And we didn't even see everything. I know they have a parade that goes on. Wonder Woman will come out and take down some bad guys. Catwoman will come out and raid the jewelry store. Like, all this is really well thought out. You could get plenty of enjoyment just hanging out and watching these characters. There's always someone who's out. So my expectations were definitely exceeded when it comes to live entertainment. And I haven't even gotten to the Stunt Show yet. If you're familiar with Movie Park Germany, they had a show there called Crazy Cops. Movie World has a similar show in a venue that looks almost identical, but they went a completely different direction with it. It's very toned down, nowhere near as over the top. In this case, you're watching a film crew shoot some scenes for a movie. So you have no more than 2 cars out on the track doing different stunts, they're getting the audience involved, and it's cheesy and fun. It is crazy loud though, so be prepared. You can hear it from like all over. After the show, we had the awesome opportunity to meet some of the drivers. They actually took us in the cars and we got to race around the tracks. Those dudes were like crazy talented. Our vehicles were way too close to each other. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. They were like actual Hollywood stunt drivers. So that's at the end of Main Street. From here, you can go right or left. If you go to the right, you're gonna hit another dead end, and this is for the Looney Tunes section. And this land feels very much plucked out of just about any Six Flags park, but with way fewer rides. This is a small land. Its main attraction is the smallest roller coaster in the park, Roadrunner, which at least has some decent theming during the ride. I like this nice little canyon rock work, but there's not much else going on here outside of like a splash pad and a carousel. This is definitely a prime example of they don't have much room to work with, so they're doing what they can, and it's alright, it's not bad. If you head back the way you came, that's when you're going to arrive at Scooby-Doo. And when I was talking to some of the people at the park, they explained that this is the most popular ride here. You would think it'd be DC Rivals, but everyone wants to ride the Scooby Doo Spooky Coaster. And unfortunately, I was not one of those people. It spontaneously closed right before we got there. They announced that it was in need of a huge refurb. It's now not reopening until 2025. Super sad we didn't get to experience it, but we did get to go backstage, see what makes the ride work. There's a full tour video already up on the channel. Definitely go check it out. That is a really, really cool looking ride. Honestly, getting to walk the track totally made up for the fact that I wasn't able to experience it. I look forward to coming back to Warner Brothers Movie World after it's reopened. Which does bring me to a good point that I just have to mention. Be sure to check the park's maintenance schedules before you plan on visiting. January is usually the sweet spot when everything is open. That's like the heart of their summer. Because they only have like 15 rides, it sucks when you can't get on what you want. Now, once you pass Scooby-Doo, you enter the Wild West. And this reminds me very much of a movie set, and I think that was the point. As you walk past these buildings, you reach the Grand Vista view, and that is with Wild West Falls. This is a great log flume or boat ride, whatever you want to call it. Super long experience. I love all the detail. Felt similar to the one that you get at Park Warner Madrid, but I like this one a lot more. Unfortunately though, this is also another dead end, and that brings me to one of my big issues with this park, and that is that you have to do a lot of backtracking. It's not the end of the world because, as I mentioned earlier, the park isn't huge, but it's still definitely not the best. Now, once they add the Wizard of Oz land, that will at least help some of this. They're placing this land where their old Vekoma SLC Arkham Asylum used to be. It's going to feature the Emerald City, a dark forest, Kansas, and 3 roller coasters. All 3 of them are from Vekoma. 2 of them are family boomerangs. The other is their family suspended model, similar to like Dragonfly or a Dollywood. And from what I understand, it's going to have really well done immersive theming. If you've ridden Leviathan at SeaWorld Australia, you know how well themed that station is. Take that level of detail and put it in the whole land. It's going to be so sick. I can't wait. It's going to look great in the park. They really needed something like this. And that way you can also link the area by Wild West Falls, send people back towards Main Street, and it'll it'll just really help with guest flow. But that's not opening till the end of 2024. In the meantime, though, every once in a while you can find some Wizard of Oz characters already walking around the park, which is a lot of fun. The last thing that I really want to mention that's in this area by the Wild West is the DC Showcase. So this is a massive building that they use to hold actual movie props. It originally opened as a Harry Potter experience, but it's now used for Batman Legacy. Features tons of props and costumes from every Batman movie made. It is amazing. We got to see costumes from The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, the original Michael Keaton Batman, all of it. It was awesome. I didn't even know it existed prior to coming, but it really was a highlight. So that gives you an idea of the park layout. I'll mention a couple other rides before moving on. They have a unique flat ride to this area called Doomsday Destroyer, very similar to like Aero 360 at Kennywood. There's an S&S shot tower called Batwing Space Shot. The big dark ride here is Justice League. This was like the original Justice League dark ride. There's so many cloned across the Six Flags chain, but this one came first and it has an original theme. You can still find some similarities to some of those other rides, like the facade is obviously very similar and they have like that same cyborg animatronic. But the story is different. In this case, Starro is your villain. That's the guy that was from the Suicide Squad movie. You're going through these different scenes where all these citizens have the starfish over their faces and they've been like possessed. Many of them are animatronics with very simple movements. There's a couple screens, but for the most part, the dark ride is like practical sets. And it is a shooting ride too, so those starfish light up so you know what to shoot. I was really impressed with the sets. It was definitely a cool experience. Now, if you come to Warner Brothers Movie World, I'm sure you're going to need to eat at some point. We grabbed food across from Scooby-Doo at the Dirty Harry Bar and Grill. I ordered some wings and some tacos. I thought they were pretty good. They were all right. I know they have a couple cafes and delis. I wouldn't expect a ton in terms of food. It's nothing really super remarkable. One thing I was definitely not a fan of, though, was the merchandise. Everything here is DC characters, Looney Tunes, or Scooby-Doo. You won't find anything that has the name of the park, the name of any of the rides. It's all just Warner Brothers licensing. It's just so sad because this is like a prime example of a park that could be doing so much better. I probably would have walked out with 2 shirts if they just had one that said Warner Brothers Movie World on it and another that said DC Rivals. But whatever. In conclusion, Warner Brothers Movie World is a good time. I liked the rides and attractions that they had. Like, some areas definitely look better than others. Don't expect the level of theming you get at the European parks. Some of the rides have nice looking theming like Justice League and Scooby-Doo and Superman, but the overall midways and buildings kind of feel a little cheap looking. I wouldn't really call it immersive, and that's why I'm excited for the Wizard of Oz land. I feel like that's going to be a different story. But regardless, I still absolutely recommend this park. I think it has so many redeeming factors and a really, really bright future. I feel like by 2025, this place is going to be at its prime. But let me know down in the comments below if you visited Warner Brothers Movie World in Australia, if you agree with the points that I brought up, if you think there's anything I missed, be sure to post all that down below. And of course, make sure to stay tuned for more amusement park reviews from places all across the world. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.